All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CRNA School Prep Academy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennell, and today we have a special guest. Jake Bevilacqua is here to join us today. He is a CRNA. And remind me, Jake, what state are you currently practicing in? I know you've moved around.
I'm currently in Florida.
Florida, that's right.
Don't judge me because of it, though.
It's not Miami, though, right?
No. I'm in Ocala, which is like horse country.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to the show today. I'm excited to bring you here today. Today is kind of going to be an episode, you guys, where we're just going to kind of mix it up a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about being a practicing CRNA in different work environments, practice dynamics. We're going to touch on 1099, W2. We're even going to touch on like a little bit about like when you transition from a W2 to 1099, disability and health insurance issues around those different types of practices. So let's get into today's show. And if you don't mind, Jake, kind of give people a little bit of a background as far as when you graduated CRNA school, maybe your background in nursing and that type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up north of Boston and I went to nursing school in Philly, got my bachelor's there, graduated in 2009. I worked between 2009 and 2011, New York Presbyterian in the burn ICU and the ER. Then I went to Philadelphia back again for anesthesia school. I did a master's there. I'm not like the fancy doctors graduating now. I'm just a lowly master CRNA.
Right. High five.
Then I bounced around Philly, Jersey area for a couple of years, moved up to Boston, worked in Boston, had a leadership position for a number of years in a department. And after COVID said, hey, I hate winter. What are we doing up here? And my wife and I moved down to horse country in Florida. Now we're living the good life. So
nice. All right. Well, welcome to the show. So I graduated in 2009 too. So funny. But yeah, so you've had a good amount of time then to be a CRNA and you've kind of get to see a good variety of practices. So kind of tell me, as far as you used to be, you've been an independent practice. You've also been W2. Is that correct? And now you're just a 1099. So kind of let's kind of like slow down a little bit and kind of start with one thing. Like, so I started as a W2 and you started as a W2. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
What was your experience like? Or what were some big takeaways as far as if you had to point out maybe the benefits of being a W2 compared to what you currently are as a 1099?
Gotcha. Yeah. So W2 it's what everyone's used to coming from a nursing background, because just about every nursing job people start with is W2. There are some 1099 travel opportunities, but most people aren't, traveling day one unless it's during COVID and, it'll take anyone with a pulse. So the thing with W2, the reason most people land in it is because it's familiar. It's a good place to sort of get your feet wet. A lot of times it's the hospital you had some clinical experience with. And it's plug and play. You just kind of show up and they're like, here, sign these forms. This is your health insurance. This is your disability insurance. This is your life insurance. This is how much you get paid. This is your retirement. You come in, you have that annoying day in HR where you bring the voided check. You always forget your passport. And then you're done. You don't have to think about it. 1099, on the other hand, you're your own business and the hospital hires you sometimes directly or sometimes through an agency to provide anesthesia for them. And as such, they pay you an hourly rate that is much higher than a W2 rate, but you're responsible for all your own benefits. You have to get all your own insurance, set up your own retirement plans. The big difference, though, is when you're 1099, you have a whole lot more control. I remember when I was an ICU nurse and my family was taking a trip, and it was during the summer, which, I was bottom of the totem pole. I had no seniority. And I had to perform a feat of magic and, bribe everyone and, bring cookies to everyone. And, it was just this massive process to get a day off or to get that week off. And now I just say to the hospital, I'm not available this week. And that's it. So having control of my time and my own benefits has been nice.
Yeah, definitely, guys. I agree with Jake in the fact that W2 kind of feels safe, especially when you don't understand the world of 1099 and what it all encompasses. And it can feel very heavy to think about providing your own benefits and understanding all the ins and outs of that. But what Jake's mentioned, the control, you guys. And so at least for me, especially after we had kids, my mindset shifted to wanting that flexibility. That's what I desired most in my life, was flexibility. And that control aspect is really important because now, don't get me wrong, it depends on where you work. facilities are different. Some facilities will actually have you on a rotation schedule for the weekend. Some don't. Some are all voluntary. Some have you on a rotation for holidays. All the holidays are voluntary. But so again, all that's going to vary. But W-2 jobs essentially can be very kind of controlling in the sense that they'll tell you, you can only have this many days off in the summertime. This is prime time vacation. You can only have so many days off. You have to work this many holidays, you have to work this many weekends. They can essentially control your schedule, where when you're a 1099, you literally can make your own schedule to say, hey, no, I have this coming up. I can't work this time. And me, I'm not 1099, but I'm PRN and I have that same flexibility and I love it. Mm-hmm. Yes, I don't have benefits. I'm a higher hourly wage. It's not as much as a 1099 hourly wage as a PRN. But I also don't have to worry about providing my own malpractice and things like that. So there are also differences between 1099, PRN, and W2. There's differences even between those three things. So I encourage you to go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that an important note for your listeners who are coming into the profession is that what you value in a job changes. It's not fixed. I remember when I graduated, everything I had was broken. My car was held together with duct tape. I was starving. I had been eating peanut butter and jelly and beans for, a couple of years. Yes. And I was like, I need the job. And I, was drowning in student debt. And I was like, I need the job that's going to pay me the most money. And I didn't care about anything else. I was like, I'll suffer through anything to make the most money. And then, as my life and my career have evolved, I'm like, well, I want to control my time or different cases, or there are other things that have become priorities.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, your values will change over time. I know for me now, granted, I did have a lot of student loan debt, but I know like for me right out of school, my priority was I wanted the best experience possible. I mean, I want to get my hands on everything. I want to do kids. I want to do OB. I want to do neuro. I want to do hearts. I want to do everything. The only thing my practice didn't provide me was regional experience, which I then sought out when I left to get regional experience. What I realized through trying to do all the things, though, is you cannot master all the things. You really have to hone in on one area that you really love and you thrive with, and then just be okay with not being a master at open heart. But maybe you'll do a regional practice and that's your specialty. It's impossible, you guys, to do OB, hearts, neuro, kids, enough to be proficient at every single aspect of it. And so I learned from me and the fact that hone in, and I'm not saying don't experience it, don't get your feet wet and see what you like. But like, I know for me, I actually had to eventually pick and choose and be okay with letting go of some of my skills. It doesn't mean it's never a possibility in the future. But same with like when it comes to picking 1099 W2, it's not fixed. You can fluctuate in your life based on what you need at the moment.
So I think you did it the right way, though, in getting exposure early in your career to everything. So if you get re-exposed to it, you're like, okay, I can figure this out. I remember doing this a while ago. It's not like you've never done it. And I think that's the advice I give new folks is, exactly what you did, work in a varied practice. So even if you're not an expert, you get exposed to all of it. And then you may go into something more specialized or, lower acuity. But then if you see it again, you're like, okay, I've done this,
True. Because at this point, I wouldn't veer away from going back in open heart. If it was presented to me to where I want it now, I have no interest in doing pediatric open heart. I work at a pediatric hospital now. Yeah, it's a big no. I would go back to adults, but for whatever reason, I'm just not interested in peds hearts. So yeah, I think you're right. I think exposing yourself early on, not only does it allow you to make a decision for yourself, but I wouldn't be afraid to go back. I wouldn't be afraid to go back to doing regional again, because I did a lot of regional. So that's just some good tidbits for you guys. And then let's kind of talk about your time as a 1099 and how have you navigated paying for your own benefits and retirement, and what resources did you seek out to help you and guide you with that?
Totally. Yeah. So I did it the hard way and just, talked to other people who had done it, figured it out on my own. Since then, there's been sort of a CRNA renaissance in CRNAs, starting businesses and starting projects that just help the community as a whole, exactly like you're doing, Jenny, with people getting into school. This would have been much easier if your resources existed when I was applying instead of, going on, All Nurses Forum and, digging down 37 threads, trying to find, some piece of information. So just like you're doing with the nurses who are on a CRNA track, do you know Alicia
Yes, in fact, we've been playing date tag. We can't, we're both so busy. We've had a hard time finding time.
So she's like the Jenny on the other side, for CRNAs
for 1099.
Been W2, helping them transition to 1099. Because for a lot of folks, it's something they want to do, but it's just very intimidating because it's like, there's just a lot of stuff you have to do. All of it's really boring. Everyone has other stuff going on with their families. They have stuff going on with their jobs. They're trying to take care of their patients, and by the time you get home at, 2 hours later than they were supposed to, and you see a pile of laundry and dinner's not cooked, and you have to go grocery shopping. It's just a lot on top of whatever you have going on in your life. So what Alicia's done is she's basically curated a package for people and say, all right, here are the people who go to for this, here are the people who go to for that, here are the people who go to for this. And she has a very comprehensive class and says, I'm going to talk to you this week about negotiation, how to negotiate a contract. Next week is going to be how to set this up. Next week is going to be how to set this up. So she essentially made it all very easy and is serving it to people on a platter, which, just makes the process much more approachable for people who are hesitant before.
Yeah, I'm going to bring her on the podcast too, which I'm excited about, but I think it's called 1099 Academy, right?
1099 Success Academy.
Yeah. Oh, 1099 Success Academy. Thank you. Yeah. Cause I'm in that boat. Just like Jake said, it's scary and intimidating. And that was one of the reasons why, even when I was interested in it, I veered away from it. Cause I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to make a mistake. What if I screw up my taxes? What if I, even though I do have a CPA, I'm sure they would help. So it is kind of a scary jump, but there's resources like the 1099 Success Academy now. Otherwise, like Jake said, it's kind of doing it old school. It's kind of like what you did for CRNA school, is networking and talking to people who have done it. And I know, like, when I used to work at my previous, like before I moved cities, I was doing just that. I was talking to locum CRNAs and asking them, what agency are you going through? How did you navigate your private health insurance, and who do you go through? And because I did consider it and I actually thought about it, but it was that fear factor where I was like, ooh, like, it's just so much more comfortable just to know I have a W2. And so I went back to it. But what are some of the benefits?
The same thing.
Other than
I say the same thing.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I'll answer that too. Whenever nurses ask me, like, hey, I'm thinking of going and becoming a CRNA, what do you think? I'm kind of on the fence. I was thinking of maybe doing this or maybe an NP. So listen, go into the OR and talk to every CRNA, and I'll give you $100 if you find one of them that regrets it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, exactly.
And I say the same thing to the CRNAs who are currently in a W2. I went 1099, then back into W2, and then back into 1099, and I'm never going back. People don't typically go back once they go in that direction. And I think you're asking about the benefits of it.
Yeah,
the biggest benefit is.
So you say you won't go back to it, but why? I want to know why. Like, what's the key reason why? Other than the key reason
is that for me, it's all about the control. We're at CRNAs are love to have control of everything.
Yeah. Okay.
It may be good in some areas, good for anesthesia, bad in other areas. I don't know, but I like the fact that I can say to my job, I'm taking July off. Sorry,
Right.
And the biggest thing is you can make the same amount of money working half the time. And so I don't see any reason why I would want to work more for less money and less control.
Yeah. Right.
It's harder to do because you have to do some work up front, but it's like buying a house. If anyone has a mortgage, like, it's a real pain to get a mortgage. But once you have it set up, there's really no maintenance. You just, set the little auto thing and it gets paid. So.
Okay. So do you have like do you have a CPA, and has that been, or do you do your own taxes too?
I'm not qualified to do my own taxes.
Okay. Cause I think a CPA would be necessary.
Yeah. So the people you want on your team, you want a CPA, you want malpractice insurance, you want health insurance, you want disability and life insurance, and you want to set up retirement accounts. And for some people who love financial stuff and are super into it, that's something they can do on their own. For other people who are like, I got enough going on, I don't want to deal with this, you can hire a financial planner or someone to help you with that.
Yeah, great. So just to repeat that steps for you guys, you want a CPA, You want to get your own malpractice. You want to get health insurance. You need to set up disability, life insurance, retirement, and potentially get a financial planner to help you with investments, like a chief financial planner kind of situation. So, but yeah, so let's kind of dive into, one thing that I know you have a kind of a soft spot or a passionate spot in your heart for disability, because you've seen what it can do to people who have a really high paying career and then have something happen. So let's kind of go into that a little bit. And why should people consider having, even if they're a W-2, why should they consider having a separate disability insurance outside of their employer?
Gotcha. Yeah. So my disclosure here is I am a licensed insurance agent. I was called Jake from State Farm enough times. I figured I'd finally just, get my insurance license, although I don't work for State Farm. It's actually, it's a family business. My dad has been a financial planner and disability specialist and life insurance specialist for a while. So I joined the family business. So I do financial planning, disability and life insurance. So that's my disclosure. I was working in sort of a CRNA leadership role, and I loved taking care of my colleagues. And my favorite thing was, someone was like, "Hey, my kid's first school play is this day. Can I get the day off?" And I know we're really short staffed, but I make it happen because I think that's really important. Or, someone get written up for something dumb and I'd be able to shut it down. And I love doing that. But the administration above me wasn't so keen on all those things. So I wanted to be doing something where I could focus 100% on just taking care of my colleagues. And I thought for a while about what that is. I'm not very flexible. I can't teach yoga. I don't have any particular wellness things. So I realized that, my wife and I paid off a bunch of student loans, and that really changed our life. And I was like, wait, this is what wellness is. If you have enough financial resources that you can quit your job because it sucks and have a little bit of a runway, or you can say, hey, my parents are sick. I need to take some time off to take care of them. I'm going to drop down to work in 2 days a week and be able to do that for a couple months. I'm not talking about like bazillions of dollars, but just a little enough extra cushion to give you control. That's what I realized I could help my colleagues find. And the disability insurance is one of the most important parts of that. And it sounds really like boring and like, I'm not disabled. I don't need that. But if you think about it, let's say that, you earn, and anyone, coming out is typically, if you're starting the track now, you're going to be earning over $200,000 a year. When you start, over the course of a couple of decades of your career, you're going to make something like $10 million. And that's more valuable than most people's houses, most people's cars many times over. And you buy insurance on your car, which may be worth $30,000 or $40,000, but really the most important asset you have is your future income. And it's not, when most people think of disability, they think of being hit by a bus or, having an anvil fall on you or something like that. But for most of us, if I hurt my left pinky, I can't mask someone. And if I can't mask someone, I can't be a CRNA. And so it's really a very low level injury can cause a disability and cause me not to be able to earn my CRNA income. And then, especially if I still had student loans or a big mortgage, or, I don't have any children, but if I had kids that needed things, I wouldn't be able to save for retirement. It really, it can be catastrophic. And that's why I think that disability insurance is just absolutely essential. And you had mentioned too, getting as a W-2, the thing I've learned in being an insurance agent is that 1 in 5 disability applications are denied. And that's not most of the time for, someone had a giant brain tumor they're concealing. It's most of the time for orthopedic things, back pain, which, as your RN listeners know, it happens to, just about anyone who has to turn a patient, especially depending on what part of the country you live in. So, even those sort of minor, not minor, but not catastrophic workplace injuries you get as an RN can disqualify you. Even every year you get older, it gets more and more expensive in an exponential fashion. So getting a policy while you're earlier in your career, you lock that rate in for the whole rest of your policy until you retire. So that'll save you a tremendous amount of money. It means that it's available because you never know, you could get diagnosed with something that makes a policy unavailable in the future. And you can't get disability insurance if you're not earning an income. So if you're a current SRNA who doesn't have an earned income, you can't get this. So I recommend grabbing it as an RN, because then if something happens to you in anesthesia school, I was scared of everything in anesthesia school. I was scared of messing everything up. I was scared of like how I was going to pay my rent. But one of the biggest fears I had was, what if I can't finish? I was watching that loan balance go up and I'm like, all right, now I have 6 figures of loans. What if I can't graduate? What if I have to go back to, being an RN? At that point, I think I was making like $34 an hour or something. I was like, I'll never be able to pay this off. So having that backup if something happens in anesthesia school, is just absolutely critical.
Yeah. Interesting. I never realized you had to have an income to get disability insurance. Yeah. So, and you guys, and that's what, like I was telling Jake, I don't want to be like negative Nancy here, but, little things do happen. Like I had a coworker who had really bad carpal tunnel, had to go undergo surgery several times for it. And it was so bad that she didn't leave her career as a CRNA, but she had to stop doing regional anesthesia, therefore she had to leave, which was a big part of what we did. Like, so, because the holding the probe was too much pain, so again, little things like carpal tunnel, who would have thought, and that's pretty common. I've had issues with my wrist. I had to get steroid injections into I was kind of dumb and I did it to myself with like this really extreme workout thing. But I remember trying to push a ICU bed after an open heart, and I just almost started crying because I was in so much pain trying to push a bed down the hallway. Same thing, like I had an ankle, I had a cyst in my ankle that caused a lot of pain after I was like postpartum, I found out after the fact that causes arthritis. Like when you're postpartum, the hormones can cause the arthritis to flare up. So I've had that issue with my postpartum now, like 3 times, and I can hardly walk when it gets really bad. And, so just like little things like that you don't think about, could really make a dramatic impact in your ability to provide income for your family. So like Jake said, that 1 in 5 people may not qualify even for their work disability insurance because of some kind of pre-existing condition. And so the earlier you take initiative to get yourself disability, the better. So what's the difference though, between if you were to do disability insurance now versus what if you're offered disability insurance through your employer, if you already had disability, would you not then take it through your employer, or would you do both?
Gotcha. So the preferential way to do it is to get your own policy first and then get your employers on top of it. Because if you have a group plan through your employer and then you try to get your own policy, the private individual policy will limit the amount of coverage. They'll subtract what you already have from your group. So you can wind up with a lot more coverage by having a one before you have one through work. And the really nice thing with that is it's portable. Most people are not staying in jobs long-term. A lot of people are switching from W2 to 1099. So if you have coverage through your W2 job, you're like, hey, I'm fine. I got this work coverage. But then a couple of years down the road, you decide to switch to 1099. You might not be able to qualify for your own individual policy after that.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's all very insightful. And it's funny. I know you don't sell health insurance. We're not going to go into too much, I'm not going to ask too many questions, but one thing that was kind of eye-opening to me, because I've actually ventured into my own private insurance sector and kind of got, we've been getting blasted between me being pregnant and, well, not anymore, but yeah, we've just discovered how crappy the private healthcare sector is. But you mentioned you go through Blue Cross, because you want to have insurance that will cover you no matter where you are at in the entire country to get good medical care. So that could be something you guys could look into as well. You went straight to the Blue Cross website and got the insurance.
Yeah. And actually, Alicia has a guy, Anthony Hibashi, that she's vetted, who I've worked with, who's really good. He was actually an anesthesia tech before he went into insurance, and all he does is health insurance for CRNAs.
Anthony Vetti.
So he's Hibashi. I can send you his contact information if you want to.
I don't know where I got Vetti.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Send me his information, because I would love to reach out to him.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a little bit about malpractice. How did you go about getting malpractice then?
Sure. Yeah. So I initially had it through the AANA, American Association of Nurse Anesthetists, and they previously had a couple different insurance companies you could get it from. They've since dropped it, and this could have changed, but this was last year's information. They only have one insurance carrier. And the really important thing when you're getting insurance is to go to someone who's independent and can shop around to all of the insurance companies, not just the one they have. So at the time I was shopping last year, the AANA, who I had used previously, only had one company they worked with. So I went to a different company that could shop different ones. I wound up saving like $2,000 a year over what the ANA had quoted. And yeah, it's malpractice is super easy to get, especially if you don't have any claims history, you haven't been sued or anything like that. It's a couple of forms, and that's fairly straightforward.
All right, that's good. So that's good to know. So pick a malpractice insurance that can shop around to get you the best deal possible. And then also just let's briefly touch on, what do you do for retirement? How do you, like, have you heard, I mean, I know that but like, I've always heard of this thing called SEP IRA, but I mean, what do you do for your retirement as a whole, since you're independent?
Yeah. So what most CRNAs do who are 1099 is they start their own business structure, which sounds really, really complicated. And the first time I've done a couple of them. The first time I did it, I was going on LegalZoom and I was trying to get a lawyer to do it. And I wound up seeing the actual form they fill out, and it was like 2 pages. And I was like, I could just do this myself. I don't need to pay anyone to do it. So it sounds super intimidating. It's really not. It's very easy. And what most people do in conjunction with their accountant is they hire themselves through the business and they pay themselves a salary, so that they can contribute to a retirement account, both as the employee, and they can also contribute as the employer with a match. Just like if you're W2 job, you would have your own contribution, and the hospital or your anesthesia group would provide a match. So you can actually contribute both sides of that in a what's called a solo 401k or an individual 401k. And that you can contribute in the high 50,000s generally, as opposed to the 19,500 or less you can do in other accounts. So that's what we do most often for CRNAs.
Nice. The solo 401k. That's awesome. 50,000 a year. Yeah. Cause they always would max you out at like what night? Yeah. Almost 19.5.
And that's because, so the employee contribution is still 19,500, but you can add more because you're contributing as the employer in addition to the employee.
I love it. Okay, cool. Versus that piddly 3% match. You're like, that's not much. I mean, it's something, but it's like,
and one of the biggest benefits of 1099 is that there are so many tax things you can take advantage of. So all that money you contribute, you're deducting from your income. If you have other work expenses, you can deduct that from your taxable income. So you can lower your effective tax rate much, much more as a 1099 than you can as a W2, because you have many more deductions available.
Yeah. That's really key, because there's a big jump in the tax bracket. If I can't remember if it goes from like 24 to 28. Is that what it does, or 26? But either way, it's a pretty significant jump once you hit a certain income bracket. So any way you can stay below that, the more money you're going to keep in your pocket. And that's also why good CPA is important as well. So I think this has been like super insightful. Let's just kind of wrap this episode up with let's just me and you, like, about our experiences as a CRNA. What would you say you enjoy the most about being a CRNA?
I enjoy the fact that I have control over my patient's care. I remember that when I was a nurse, the biggest thing that I was frustrated with was, saying, I know that this patient needs XYZ, but I have to go wake up this doctor who I'm gonna have to page 3 times. They've been a doctor for 3 months. They think they know everything. I have to fight them on this. And now I can just do, I'm lucky enough, I work in a care team model right now, but it's a very, autonomous one. And I'm lucky in that I have the flexibility to do what I think is right by each patient. And I really enjoy having that flexibility.
I would agree, you guys. And this is also good key terminology for those of you who are early on and you're like, haven't even done interviews yet. Take some of these takeaways for your own food for thought as far as why you want to pursue CRNA. But I have heard quite often where nurses are like, why do you want to become a CRNA? And a lot of times it's because you like that kind of bigger impact role. It's a bigger responsibility, which comes with a lot of pressure and stress. Yes, but it's really rewarding to have that control over your patient's outcome. And the fact that you have the knowledge to know how to provide for them best, and you can take action to do that. It's a really beautiful thing. So that's definitely one of the benefits. And one thing that I know I love about being a CRNA, I really love like the anxiety, the decreasing anxiety aspect of being a CRNA. That's what I really love about it. I love connecting, and you guys, it's a short period of time. I get it. It's like that really quick preoperative assessment, or even if it's just moments before they go to sleep. I'm telling you, because I work with kids, you can really make a huge impact that quick, short 2-minute interaction you get with making someone feel at ease. Just a smile. And even if it's like a small handhold, I rub my kid's head to sleep. Now that might sound kind of creepy, but like, I think I have children and I know, like, I sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, you know, I'll rock them. I'll love on them. Like, I'm their mom. And so, and I wouldn't do that with adults, but with adults, I've held their hand as I push the drugs to go to sleep. I've looked at them and smiled and said, I'm going to watch you very closely. You're going to be safe. You're going to be cared for. I'm going to watch you the whole time. Just having that, and then seeing that relief in their expression and saying, even if it's tears of relief, like someone's like, it's emotional to go to sleep because they're just scared. I enjoy being that person for my patient, because I know if I was in that situation, I would want someone to hold my hand, you know, because I would be nervous.
That's a 1,000%. That is the most rewarding part of it. I think more so even than any clinical accomplishment. Like, at first I was like, I want to get the tough tubes and I want people to wake up in no pain, and, you know,
yeah.
And now exactly as you said, you know, and it's common to get, you know, oh, you're going into anesthesia because you don't like people, or something like that. But you really see where nursing shines in the OR. And I've worked with a lot of extraordinarily compassionate anesthesiologists, but you see something different on average from people who have been a nurse first. And it's that ability to look out not just for the clinical picture, but for the emotional one as well. And just exactly as you said, it's the most high impact 5 or 10 minutes of patient interaction that there is on the planet. Because this person has never met you before, and they know that they're about to be stripped naked, strapped down to a table, and rendered completely helpless. Like, you could literally cut them open and they wouldn't be able to do anything. And it is a enormous privilege to be able to care for someone in that. And it's something still, you know, almost 10 years into doing this, I haven't forgotten or lost respect for.
Yeah, 100%. It's a beautiful thing. And it's the human connection, right? I mean, I think, don't get me wrong, and I love pathophysiology pharmacology. And I look back to, like, when they asked me that in my interview, I'm pretty sure I said pathophysiology pharmacology. But what was interesting is one of my other interviews that I didn't do so well on, they asked me if I enjoyed patient interaction. And I said, yes. And they immediately jumped down my throat and said, well, I don't know if you're going to be a good fit for a CRNA because your patients are going to be intubated and sedated. And I'm like, and at the time I was caught so off guard by that, because kind of like what I just explained to you, I didn't think that were amazing answer to say to them in the interviews, but if I had the insight to what I have now, I could have. And it's really about that. Even if it's a short moment, like even in the ICU, my patients are not awake, but I've seen tears from patients who are hanging on the ventilator. Whether it's subconscious, just whatever, they're producing tears. I know they're in there. They're still a person, whether they can talk to me or not. They're still a person. They still have feelings, emotions, and it's still their life. And so I have major respect for that. And so when you get that small time to interact with someone moments before you render them unconscious, that's like the biggest privilege in the world to have that. And they wake up differently. Like, if you put someone to sleep with less anxiety, they wake up with less pain, less nausea, just overall better healing process. They have less fight or flight cortisol in their body. They heal better. They have less infection rate. And it may be a little, I don't care how little it is. To me, it makes a big difference. So that's kind of how I look at it. No, nothing's too small. And it kind of goes back. Have you ever heard the story of the boy on the beach who was throwing starfish back into the ocean? I guess. So the story is that this little boy was on a beach and there's thousands of starfish that washed up onto the shore. He was throwing them back one by one to try to save their lives. And this gentleman walked on the beach and he was like, you know, you're never going to be able to save them all. And he's like, but I saved that one. So it's because that one matters. It doesn't matter. You can't save them all. It's whatever impact you can make. It matters to that one person, that one starfish. But I like that, because whenever time I think that I'm doing something that seems so small, I think it matters to them. And that's all that matters to me. Yeah.
And you sort of like, I tend to like not forget it, but I don't appreciate it as much. And then something happens, you know, I have to, you know, go to the doctor, my family member does, and you're like, holy shit. So I don't know, is this a family podcast?
I mean,
like, this is, yeah, they're like, you know, you sort of realize how vulnerable it feels and how scary it is. You're like, oh, wow. And, you know, I still remember the times that someone has like held my hand or done something little that they probably didn't even remember an hour later, but I still remember how it made me feel.
Yeah, which is a really cool thing. So that's we've answered this question pretty thoroughly, I think, as far as why CRNA, but I hope you guys get a bigger picture of the fact that it's more than just about getting more responsibility and putting in airways and central lines and mixing up medications and dosing them. It's about the bigger impact you make on someone's life as a CRNA, as an anesthesia provider. So, okay, next question.
And if I can Can I throw one more thing out there, Jenny?
Yeah, of course.
I think that something I never anticipated going into this, but I have appreciated, is we get really good at certain things. And those things are applicable in the wider worlds of the hospital. And, generally, if we go to a code or we go to trauma or something else, there are a lot of areas that we can contribute that isn't why we're there necessarily. So I've gotten a lot of joy from helping with education for other people in different areas who they might be good at a lot of things that I'm not, but I have one particular skill that I'm like, hey, you could tweak this a little bit and it would really make a big difference. And I think people feel calmer when there are CRNAs there, and they feel safer having us around for the other team members.
Yeah, you get really good. I feel like you get really good at managing and delegating in a situation that is high stress, because you do it all the time. It doesn't really feel that intimidating for you. We recently did like a mock MH scenario, which I thought was a really great experience. And I could tell by far, I had no problem bossing people around and telling people like, I need this and give me that, but I could tell everyone else was like stressed for the simulation experience. And I remember being like, well, I've done this so many times with, may not be MH, but it's with other things. And it didn't feel that stressful. And so you get good at that, And
I never appreciated the amount of leadership that was going to be involved even in a care team, in a just normal non-leadership position. It's leadership of the team all day, because everyone's looking to the head of the bed for direction.
Yes. Yeah. And taking that responsibility is something you eventually get used to. And it becomes, like you said, you can go to other areas of the hospital and take charge because it just comes natural to you. And people respect that. They want that. They value that. They like having a CRNA around because they know someone's going to make a choice. They know someone's going to tell them what to do, and it's okay. And even if they're already thinking this is what I should do, something about having that confirmation from someone who is not afraid to speak, to say it. I promise you, if you're a nurse and you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be that way, you will, because you're going to, you will. Yeah, you will, you will, even if it feels uncomfortable, you will eventually get there, and it will feel uncomfortable, but that's always say embrace being uncomfortable, because that's where you get the most growth. Anyhow, so yeah, those are all great. So we'll kind of wrap this up with maybe like one more question. And so we already talked about like, what's your favorite thing about being a CRNA? What would you say is your least favorite thing about being a CRNA?
I think it goes back to control again.
You really are a control freak. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, it's, you don't have a lot of choices in your day. For the most part, you're told which operating room you're in. You don't get to pick the staff in the room. You don't get to pick the patients. You don't get to pick the surgeon. You don't get to pick the procedures.
True.
And then, you might have a big cup of coffee in the morning and you have to pee, but you have to wait for someone to come, give you a bathroom break. What are you drinking, by the way? I was going to ask earlier.
It's a cold brew from Starbucks.
I love it. I got kombucha here in case anyone thought I was drinking beer or something. I already had coffee this morning, if you can't see by my. And then, you just, once you finish your work, someone tells you what to do next. And I think that I don't personally love that. I'd rather get to, be like, hey, I think I want to do some of that today, but that's not how an OR works.
Yeah, true.
So,
or like when your assignment gets changed last minute, you had a mental preparation for one thing, and all of a sudden, boom, now you're in this other case just because you're the CRNA who can do it, because you'll do a rupture AAA and you're like, no, I had a nice day planned out. Now I have to go to that mess.
Yeah. And it's there is in this field, and I don't mind it, but there's a competence is almost punished a little bit. Like you're like, okay, this person I don't have to worry about. So I'm going to take you out of your, 4-hour breast reduction that you're going to put your feet up in for a while and just kind of, look at the monitors and put you in the ruptured AAA or the trauma or something. But it's a good reflection on the provider, but it sometimes makes for more work. But
yeah, what I have noticed too, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining at all, because it's kind of nice for a change. Because like I said, I did all that. I put up my time where I was like the person who would just take the messes, and I was okay with that because it was a good experience and I embraced it. But now it being PRN and I'm only there, like they don't put me in those messes. And I'm like, that's totally okay with me. Like I'm cool being the PRN who just comes in and does like, you know, the easier cases. But it does tend to happen to the CRNAs who, you know, you do tend to get pigeonholed into doing some more of the messier cases eventually, but that's okay. Like I said, it's actually a compliment really on your skill set. But yeah, the control, you don't really have control of your day, what you actually do. You don't get to pick what cases you do and honestly, if you were to complain about it, you end up kind of getting blacklisted. You don't complain. You just do it and embrace it. And cause everyone's going to have their turn. Right. So I would agree that that's probably a downside. My thing is like what I couldn't stand, and I guess it is probably a control thing too. So I'm right there with you, but it's you don't really have control with like when your shift ends. Like, don't get me wrong. Where I work now is amazing. Like they do a fabulous job. It's actually the only place I've ever worked where freaking people get out on time. But like historically where I've ever worked, it's like, when is my day going to end? I don't know. Am I going to miss my kid's appointment? Am I going to miss my appointment, my kid's swim team meet, whatever it is? You never had a predictable end of shift and you'd have to like barter with your coworkers. Hey, you're first out today. Can I trade you? Because I have somewhere I have to be. And that became an added stress on your day when it's like, I'm supposed to be a 3 o'clocker, but I might be here till 5:30 at night. And the surgeons don't care. They would just keep adding on more cases. And you're like, oh, someone put their foot down and say, no, this can wait till tomorrow. Or is this really a class 1? Like you just, ooh, you know, they would just, it's a class one, you know, and it really wasn't always.
And that's another thing that I never thought to ask in a job interview is who runs the OR? Is it the surgeons? Is it nursing? Is it anesthesia? Because if, you know, you have a good, strong anesthesia person running it, they might say, nope, we're losing staff at 5. You're doing your case tomorrow. Exactly. But if the surgeons have a lot of influence in the OR, the nurses run it, but the surgeons have a lot of influence on the nurses, you know, they might just say, oh, you want to take off this hangnail at 3 a.m? Yes, doctor. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So that is, like you said, it's important to maybe ask like who controls the surgery schedule. Is it anesthesiologist? I mean, don't get me wrong. Almost everywhere I've worked, there's been a blend of both, meaning like it's kind of a flex. But really, like Jake said, sometimes the stronger your anesthesia team foothold is in that area, the less surgical control there is of the schedule. And honestly, it makes the OR run more efficiently because you don't have to pay people overtime to stay over, and it just makes it for a happier work environment when people know they're getting out on time. I can't tell you enough how many, that was probably one of the biggest pet peeves of a lot of people as far as never knowing when they're going to get out and being stuck all the time. So that's to me, that was like a big downside, but there's no magical job. There's no unicorn job. However, there are better places. So just don't lose hope. Cause again, I kind of was like, well, this is just the normal and to be expected. But I, again, hadn't have been my 3rd place of employment, now see that there are places who do a good job with that. They are out there. So know that you don't have to put up with that really, as long as you're flexible and moving around. Some places can do this better than others, which is why maybe being a PRN somewhere, or at least talking to CRNAs to see if that was actually when I tried to find another job, is a mistake I kind of made was, first, what's your most senior CRNA? How long have they been there? Like, what's your oldest, most retained staff? If it's 3-4 years, big red flag, big red. I mean, and that was actually one of my facilities that was their, I mean, granted, they had one CRNA who'd been there for like 10 years, but everyone else, like 3 years, most senior CRNA, like that's a big red flag. So it was one of my biggest questions was, what's your retention like? Because that just gives you a good indication long-term, how happy are they making their staff? So just something, food for thought. But yeah, thank you, Jake, for meeting with me today. I think this was really insightful. We covered a lot of ground, you guys. But I really kind of want to just hone in on some of the big takeaways was W2, 1099, a control. We've mentioned control so many times, but really there's something to be said about having that flexibility and control of your life, and you will appreciate it. And you might have all your mindset on money, but like Jake said, you actually can make more money with a 1099 than W2, and you have more control over how you use that money. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There's a lot of great resources out there to kind of hold your hand through the process, but you will figure it out. And I think it was Marie Folio who said this, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but everything's figure outable. I said that to my children who were like 3 and 5. I'm like, it's okay. It's figure outable. And they're like, huh, what is that a word? I don't know, but I like it because everything, even if it seems scary, everything you can figure it out. And does it go smoothly? Maybe not, but that's okay. You can figure it out. So don't be afraid to take that leap. And don't forget about, when you do it, make sure that you take ownership of getting your healthcare, malpractice, disability, life insurance, retirement, and also maybe some financial investing for yourself. And in the show notes, just so you guys know, we're going to list some resources like Jake. I'm going to have you give me your contact information. For those of you guys who want to look into disability and life insurance, you can reach out to Jake here. I'm also going to get Anthony's contact information for health insurance. We'll also maybe put some links in there for like malpractice and things like that, just so you guys can have some quick links to go to, as well as if you already are an SRNA and you're looking for 1099 work, maybe I'll list the 1099 Success Academy as well, if you want a resource for that. So this was a lot of fun. Anything you want to add, Jake, to wrap this up?
No, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for what you're doing. It's making such a better presence for our profession, and our future is really dictated by getting the right people to become CRNAs. And I think what you're doing is awesome. And I'm just very honored to be a small part of it. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that. And you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again for listening. Be sure, if you're not already in the ICU Dreaming About Anesthesia Facebook community, that you go there now and join. Also, CRNA School Prep Academy is there for you. It's my mentorship program that I pour my heart and soul into for you guys. Some super exciting things coming up in the future with that. So definitely check it out at CRNASchoolPrepAcademy.com. All right. Well, thank you, Jake. You have a good rest of your day, and we'll see everyone back on the podcast next week.